Welcome back to Jedi Enclave. I'm Daniel.
I'm Chris.
And we're two nerds trying to find our way in the universe. And we're revisiting a concept that we established, but once the movie came out and once all this stuff happened, we kind of put it on the back burner.
Well, there was also The Mandalorian, which kind of took
there was
up
so
that
much
niche.
stuff. Yeah,
there's just so much Star Wars, but now there's not as much Star Wars.
Yeah.
So we can come back to Star Wars story time.
Yeah. Now, I've got to say, I'm glad we're doing this, and just as a precursor, this is some of the best Star Wars storytelling I've seen. I like reading these comics more than I liked watching The Rise of Skywalker.
That's a bit of a low bar to pass.
I'm just telling you, it's like, wait until I tell you the story, because
Okay.
like when I get to the end, because we're gonna do issue 1 and 2 in the same one.
Okay.
At the end of this, you're gonna be like, that's why you're jerking off to this.
I think I know exactly why, but
Well, have you read the second one?
I have not. But we'll get there. Yeah. I've seen an image you
Oh yeah, right.
passed around a little bit. Yeah.
Okay, so this is the rise of Kylo Ren. And at some point during the editing of this, I'll probably throw in some images from our buddy at Star Wars Comics.
Yeah. Star Wars Comics Story.
Yeah, Star Wars Comics Story, who does... We still are not sure how it's legal, but...
I don't know how he hasn't gotten shut down yet.
Good for him, though. That's great. Yeah. Maybe he's Disney.
Maybe he doesn't monetize? That
might be he wouldn't be able to, because he has all of the music from all the old video games and stuff.
So the fact that he's not making money, maybe that's getting him below Disney's radar?
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
Anyway, so I'm gonna set the scene real quick.
Okay.
It's told with a couple of different timelines happening at the same time. One is present day with Kylo Ren, who has just destroyed the Jedi. Mm-hmm. And the other is little wee Ben Solo as a teenager with his uncle, Luke Skywalker. Okay. Mm-hmm. So before we get into that, though, the comic opens with the Knights of Ren trying to recruit a guy. Now, already we're learning more than we've learned from any of the films.
Yes.
Which is the Knights of Ren existed before Force Awakens, and they existed before Kylo Ren. Mm-hmm. That's kind of neat. So they go to this planet, and they talk to this guy and his brother, and they're like, hey, we're recruiting, but you got to be able to touch the darkness. And they're like, the fuck are you talking about, the darkness? And he's like this, and he like makes a lightsaber hilt flip. Mm-hmm. And he's like, oh yeah, I can kind of do that.
Yeah.
And so they have a little talk, and he's kind of telling, he's like, if you won in the Knights of Ren, you're going to be a Knight of Ren, and this is a Ren, and it turns out that Ren means lightsaber.
Oh.
Another thing.
Okay.
Like,
cool.
why are they called the Knights of Ren? Well, now we
because they have lightsabers.
Yeah. Well, one of them has a lightsaber.
Oh, they're the Knights
leader
of the lightsaber.
Yes, and
okay.
it's one guy. It's the leader that's allowed, which is another thing. That's why Kylo is the guy with the lightsaber.
Yeah, that explains so much,
and it makes sense,
yes.
Right? So anyway, they didn't like the guy, so they just kill him.
I thought the dude's brother kills him, and then they're like, yeah, but you can't touch the darkness, so we're gonna kill you.
Yeah, you kill the guy with the darkness, so we're gonna kill you. So they just kill him, and like on their way out, they're like, yeah, we're an exclusive club, so it's okay that we kill everyone. We're fucking edgelords.
Dark side.
Yeah.
I think it's like it's very clear that they're dark side, but they're not Sith, which is another thing that the post original trilogy is doing their damnedest to establish, that there are many, many, many ways of using the Force. It's not just Jedi and Sith.
Right. I think these guys were, this is post Return of the Jedi. We know that Force sensitivity exists. Luke can't be the only Force sensitive one. So,
there was Broom Boy at the end of Last Jedi.
Right. So what happened is some fucking emo kid probably figured out he had the Force and was like, I'm going to go make a gang.
Yep.
Got a gang together, found out probably went to like the fucking arena on Geonosis and like did some digging and found a lightsaber.
Oh, it's a Ren.
Yeah. And there, he's got his own, Force user cult. All right. So they kill him. And then we get to present day, where Ben is standing in front of the burning Jedi temple. Mm-hmm. Like
he's kind of bothered by this.
Yeah, he's like, what have I done? He's like, oh God, I really hope Luke's dead because he's gonna kick my ass. You find out that there were some students that were off planet on a mission, which is just the fact that there were students on a mission made me feel super expanding universe, because that was like Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy, you know, where your student went on missions for Luke Skywalker and stuff. It's a little detail, but I was like, oh, that's so cool. So they're like flying in on their ship and everything's on fire.
Like,
they're
what the fuck?
Yeah. They land. So what's really funny is they like, as they're flying in, like one of the students is like, I don't feel anyone. Like everyone's dead. And the other person's like, I don't feel Luke Skywalker. Or like, I don't feel Master Skywalker. And everybody feels him. Like you feel him from like 10 miles away.
Yeah.
So they're like, the fuck is happening?
Something has gone terribly wrong.
Right. So they go and land and they see Ben just like standing there staring at the fire, you know.
Like, Ben, what the fuck happened?
He's taking a pose. And yeah, they get out and there are 3 of them. And they're like, you gonna tell us what happened here? And he's like,
no.
Yeah. Eventually he just says, well, Luke tried to kill me, and so I killed him, and now the Jedi's gone. You guys should run away now. And they're like, you killed Luke?
You killed Luke Skywalker.
Yeah. And he's like, yeah, you don't think I could fucking do it? And they're like, no. In fact, we don't think that you could. And Kylo goes on this, like, he's so whiny and bitchy already. And he was like, well, I'm this temple's prize student, you know, of course I could have. And they're like, okay, whatever. And they have this conversation. What ends up happening is that the three students are like, we don't know what's happening here, but it's best if you come with us.
Ben's like, no, fuck you.
Yeah. And they draw their lightsabers. Ben's like, oh, is that what we're going to do? And so he injures one of them. They're clearly outmatched, is the point. It turns out, yeah, he's kind of a whiny bitch. He's arrogant, but
he can use a lightsaber.
He was the temple's prize student, really, right? Damn. And he avoids killing them, though. And he gets on his ship, which looks kind of like the Millennium Falcon, which I thought was kind of cool.
A little bit.
Yeah, he gets on the ship. His droid pilot or whatever was like, hey, you haven't been home in a while. You want to go see your mother on Hosnian Prime? And he's like,
it's like, no.
Oh yeah, there's it's beautiful art in this comic, and it's like one panel of like Princess Leia, and he's like, oh shit, my mom.
Oh fuck.
Yeah, and he's like, oh god, this like no, we're not going to Hosnian Prime. And so he flashes back again, to I guess a few minutes earlier, like before all of this happened, right? And he had just killed Luke, and the temple is not burning, and he's like screaming at the temple, and he's asking like, why did you do this to me? And he starts hearing voices in his head, and it's Snoke, who's like, wasn't your fault. Luke was a dick.
Hang on a second. Was this Snoke or was this Palpatine pretending to be Snoke?
Who the fuck knows? I don't know. I'm going to say Snoke so far because we're not exactly clear yet on if, a spoiler alert by the way, but we don't know if like Snoke was a clone that was unwittingly controlled by Palpatine, or if he was, or like Palpatine's like, hey, you want to be my apprentice? Because that's never ended badly.
Yeah, I regret asking this question already.
Yeah, so we're just going to call him Snoke for now. Snoke is like, hey man, don't worry about it. I love you.
We cool.
Yeah. And the temple just explodes. And Ben's like,
the fuck?
Yeah, Ben's like, for the record, I did not do this. Which is another pretty shocking fact, that raising the Jedi Temple wasn't Ben Solo. It was, I think we're supposed to infer Snoke through some, or Palpatine, I don't know, through some magic. And was, he just didn't do it. So he's back on the ship. The droid has just asked him, hey, you want to go see your mom? And he's like, no, take me somewhere else. And he means Snoke. Right around then, the Jedi students have kind of regrouped a little bit, and they're like, okay, we just got our asses spanked. Let's go chase him, which I thought was kind of stupid. But they get the guy that's wounded. Yeah, they get on the ship, and they're like, we don't know what's happening, but we need to learn what happened, and we need to bring him in, and like there's one of them that like you can tell in like Jedi class has really hated Ben Solo, because he's like, that dude's always been a dick. And then there's one like super sarcastic one that's you know, just being a dick to everyone. And there's one who's like, she's probably the one that had a crush on Ben. It's like, Ben couldn't do this. He's such a nice guy.
Yeah.
He's so cute. And so anyway, they're like, yeah, we're going to go catch up to him, bring him in, and figure out what happens. So they get in their ship and they go chasing after him. And Ben was like, fuck. Like, they're supposed to stay back there. So he takes out their engines. Note, did not destroy the ship. Mm-hmm. Just could not do it.
This is very interesting development because it contrasts greatly with the Kylo Ren we see in the movies, who just fucking murdered everything,
including Han fucking Solo.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the point. So he disables the engines. And the students are like, "Well, what the fuck? Like, what are we supposed to do now?" And the sarcastic guy's like, "Just fucking fix the ship. Like, it's not that big of a deal." And they discover that all of the Jedi trainee ships have trackers on them, just in case they get into a mission and they need like Uncle Luke to come, you know, pick him up or something.
Okay, we can still track him down.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah, so they're like, we'll track him this way. And one of them's like, should we call his mother? And they're like, are you going to call her? Like, what the fuck are you going to say? Like,
hey, your brother's dead.
Yeah.
And we're chasing your son because he probably did it.
Yeah. Hi. You know, good to see you. At this point, she's still a senator, I think, mm-hmm. in the New Republic. So they're like, we need to do this. We got to do it for Master Skywalker, and we've got to do it for Ben. And they go off, right? So Kylo gets to Snoke, who is now apparently a gardener of some sort.
Sure. Everybody needs a hobby.
He's in green robes. He's got a weird fucking hat thing on. He's like touching flowers and stuff. And
so he's Tom Bombadil is what you're telling me.
So Kylo gets there and like runs up to him. He's like, I don't know what I did. Yeah. And he's like petting his head. He's like, it's okay. It's okay.
My child.
Yeah.
Being as creepy as possible.
Yeah. It turns out that where he's at is this like weird planet with these huge man-made structures built around it. It's very strange looking. Mm. You find out another thing. This was a previously held theory that I've had since Force Awakens that I pissed myself almost when I found out it was true. Snoke's face is already fucked up. Mm-hmm. And Kyle looks at him. He's like, oh my God, look at what Luke did to you. And I was like, show me that movie. Show me that movie where Luke fucking Skywalker beats Snoke up and then just like leaves him for dead. And it's like, fuck you, you're too tall. And just leaves, right? So, it was really cool. And I like how like Snoke was like, it's nothing. I'm fine. Don't worry about it. So he's talking to him a little bit, and we're kind of getting into issue number 2 here. And first Kylo was like, hey, we were talking about the Knights of Ren that one time. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me where to find them? Yeah. And the issue ends. And the next one, Snoke is kind of talking to him about where they're at. He's like, do you like this place? And Kylo's like, I guess.
It's fine.
It's got flowers. Yeah. That's awesome. He's like, well, this was a source of dark energy that someone foolishly tried to come here and squash it with the light. And, well, we can see what happened to them. And there are like a couple of skeletons that are like impaled by trees or something. It doesn't look like a dark side nexus. It's very colorful and everything, but it is obviously Snoke's like finally somewhere dark and just hang out. And so Ben's like, but really I need to find out where the Knights of Ren are. And he's like, well, I don't know where they are. They're a super elite organization. They're, very preppy, and they, you have to be recruited and shit.
I don't have their business card. Yeah. You'll have to go find them on your own.
Tip though, maybe you should go to the last place you saw them. Huh. Gives them a little wink, and then bam, we're in flashback mode.
Okay, cool.
And we're on a ship, and we've got little baby Ben, who's 13, 14 probably. Okay. Lauren Santeca from Force Awakens, the very first scene from Force Awakens.
Oh yeah, that guy. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And Luke Skywalker.
Okay.
Who is like in his prime Luke Skywalker, right?
Yeah.
Luke's flying. Luke's like, are you sure where we're going to is a real Jedi outpost? And Lauren Santeca is like, bitch, I know what a Jedi outpost is. Yes. And so they're like talking about, and Ben's in the back seat like, oh, this is so boring. And
are we there yet?
Yeah.
I want McDonald's.
Yeah. So here's the super creepy thing.
Okay.
At this point in his life, 13, 14 years old, Snoke is already talking to Ben right in front of Luke.
That's spooky.
He can hear him in his mind. And he like calls him or whatever.
Hello.
We can't say Force Skype because that's like what he and Ray do, but
it's like a Force instant message.
Yeah. He's like, hey boo, you feel a little upset. What's going on? Which is so creepy because he's like 13 or 14, right?
I'm riding around with my uncle. That's really boring.
Yeah, that's more or less what he says. He's like, I'm bored as fuck. They wouldn't even let me fly. And oh my God. And the other thing that popped out to me too was that first Ben calls Luke Master Skywalker. Mm-hmm. And I can't tell if that's a product of Luke being like, I know you're my nephew, but you're also my student. So there's a line there that you can't cross, or if it's just Ben just worshiping Luke Skywalker, which we find out is kind of the case later on in the comic, right? Mm-hmm. But it's clear that he worships him a lot, and he, like, everything he says, he just, like, he wants approval from him. So, like, Luke will ask him a question, be like, hey, what do you think of this? He's like, I think it's great. I think it's awesome. Everything you do is awesome.
Yeah.
And the whole thing is Snoke grooming him.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, well, I know your uncle is real important and everything, but you and I, you don't have to.
We have something.
Yeah. It's so fucking creepy. It really is. So they get to this Jedi outpost. It's like really cool big door with a Jedi thing on it. And Ben's like, oh my God, an adventure. This is so fun.
Oh, could you imagine, like, Snoke walking into a house, like, with looking around, and this Chris Hansen comes in from the other. Why don't you have a seat right there?
Yeah, I have this chat log. Yeah,
it says here you wanted him to kill his uncle.
Yeah.
Well, what's all that about?
Yeah, you had beer in your backpack. What was it? Yeah.
You came here with condoms and lube.
Yeah. Oh my God, what a great show. So yeah, they get to this outpost and they go inside, and Luke looks around just after one like glance around. He's like, this place is a fucking treasure trove. Like, this is awesome. Mm-hmm. And Lauren Santeca is like,
what did I tell you, bitch?
Yes, yeah, we had this conversation already. And I'm almost positive, if you're listening, correct me if I'm wrong, but first they made a shout out to another comic. Did you read the comic about how Joe Castanew survives Order 66?
Oh yeah, and then she has her lightsaber rifle that she shoots at Darth Vader, or whatever.
Is in this outpost.
Cool.
So like, why he's talking to, like, well, Lauren Santeca's telling him like, hey, you should not, I'm fucking smart. I know what I'm talking about. Like, Ben's like walking over to this rifle, like, the fuck is this?
Yeah.
Shit? And also, Luke makes a mention. He's like, this is a better collection of stuff that I even found at Joe Castanew's outpost, that's kind of how her story ends. She like hides names of Force sensitives and stuff. So it's a kind of cool, shout out. So like Luke's like rubbing his hands and he's got like money signs and shit. And he's like, this is going back to the temple, the Jedi temple. And there's a voice. He's like, you're not taking it. And they all turn around and it's the motherfucking Knights of Ren with their leader who has this like cool fucking helmet and everything.
Is it the Kylo helmet?
No.
Okay.
No, all the other knights look like we know them from the movies more or less. They'll have like their own like weapons and shit. But this guy, it looks a lot like, it looks kind of like a Revan kind of a thing. It's, I'll show you. We'll put one up.
Yeah.
And so he's like, all this shit's ours. And Luke's like,
bitch, please.
Excuse me? And he's like, first of all, this belongs to the Jedi. And I'm the fucking last Jedi. And then immediately after that, a touching moment where he looks at Ben and he says, but not for long. But you're under arrest or whatever. And even if I wasn't the last Jedi, I wouldn't let you take it anyway, because you guys kind of seem like dicks, and I can feel the dark side on you.
Yeah.
And we all know, I did 3 movies about this already, the dark side does not fly here. Mm-hmm. And the knights are like, well, I guess we'll just have to fight about it. And Luke Skywalker's like, glad you mentioned that.
I thought you'd never ask.
And so Ben's like, there are like 7 or 9, like 7 of them. And he's like, oh, I'll be fine. And has his lightsaber drawn. And like the leader of the Knights of Ren is like, this is going to be so fucking easy. This old guy probably never even, fought or whatever. Yeah. And Luke then proceeds to beat the fuck out of all of them whilst monologuing.
Yeah.
And it's so fucking cool. He's swinging and shit and talking about how, he's like, you guys use the dark side like a fucking hammer. I'm not a hammer. I'm the light side. I'm more like a blade, a really well sharp blade that knows exactly where to go. And he's like just kicking the shit out of all of them. And they don't know what to do. Like some of them just like lay on the floor. They're like,
I don't want to.
Yeah.
I want to go home.
Yeah. And the whole time, Lauren Santeka is in the background watching. He's like, this is so fucking cool. Like he's like, this is magnificent. This is so cool.
Yeah.
And also the whole time Ben's watching, like, this is.
I want to do that.
Yeah. This is Luke Skywalker. Like this, I
want to be that when I grow up.
So he beats him. And then the leader is left. And Luke's like, so you want to cry and go home yet? And the guy's like, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, you made your point. We'll just be on our way.
Right. So they like, all the knights like get up and everything. And he's like, this isn't over. And Luke's like, fuck you. Yeah, it is. And he looks over, the leader of the Knights of Ren look over at Ben. And he's like,
no, this really isn't over.
Yeah. Well, he looks at him. He's like, you got a little bit of the darkness in you. And Ben's like, the fuck are you talking about? And he's like, if there's ever a day where you want to talk to us,
give me a call.
Give me a call. And he drops his helmet. And what I notice about after he takes his helmet off, he looks a little bit like Kylo Ren. Like his hair is kind of this, like that same black, Yeah. And they fuck off.
Yeah.
And like Luke like puts his lightsaber away and his heartbeat hasn't even risen.
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, let's pack this shit up and go. And present day Kylo or Ben arrives at the outpost. And most of the shit's still there. I think Luke was like, I'm going to leave it. And they come back, I'll just spank their asses. I don't even care. Yeah. He goes over to the helmet and picks it up. And he puts it on. And a voice in the helmet's like, I thought you'd never fucking call.
Took you long enough, jackass.
Yeah. And they're like, hey, we're on this planet. Come hang out with us. And
we have beer and hookers.
Yeah. And blow. And Ben's like, all right. And he takes the helmet off and he turns and it's the 3 students with their lightsabers. And they're like, we need to talk. Like, this isn't over. And that's how the issue ends.
Okay.
And it's magnificent.
Sounds like it.
It's so much of it is so cool. They confirm a lot of things that I wanted to know about different random things. Mm-hmm. I get to see Luke Skywalker as a badass. Yep. Because that's
like that is all that you personally have ever wanted to know in Star Wars.
And I don't think that like a lot of the people that had problems with The Last Jedi have problems with the fact that they didn't see Luke do something like this. I think
they kind of did.
Not in their minds. It was
okay.
It wasn't the kind of over dramatic like where he's like monologuing while he's doing it, like just beating the piss out of them, And I'm happy with how they portrayed Luke, but seeing it makes sense that his younger self would be like that.
Yeah,
because this must be 15, 20 years after Return of the Jedi, so he's still young. More or less, and he's like, "Bitch, I beat Darth Vader. Like, I'm the Last Jedi."
Yeah,
and he seems very sure of himself, and he's so confident. His lightsaber skills, despite all of his teachers dying, is impeccable. He's clearly this amazing fighter, and that was really cool for me. Learning that they're kind of retconning some stuff to make Ben's redemption and Rise of Skywalker be a little bit more palatable. Mm-hmm. So like the fact that he didn't actually blow up the temple. and the fact that he still won't kill these students, even though I suspect he's probably going to run from them again. He's probably going to run from them again, and they're going to follow him to the Knights of Ren, and they're going to be like, you need to kill these fucks, or you're not going to be a Knight of Ren. And
it's like, okay, yeah, I guess.
Right. The thing about Snoke having a showdown with Luke, not only do I want to see it, I suspect that we will at some point. That's too big of a meetup in the Star Wars universe to not show in some kind of capacity.
It is useful as a storytelling tool to not show that, because it lets your audience imagine it and have their own version of whatever it was go down. Like, you can dance around it and tell all the important things that came from it and like the circumstances without actually showing it.
Yeah. I don't know.
Which isn't to say that I wouldn't also like to see it, but I don't know that it's coming as soon as you'd like.
Well, I disagree. I think that since Star Wars is doing their knee-jerk, course correction, and they're like, oh, people went to Luke Skywalker. Here's Luke Skywalker. It's
well, maybe.
So yeah, it's hard to tell. I know I'd be delighted if they showed it. So, God, what a great I've enjoyed the other comics so far up till now. Mm-hmm. This comic story so far is superb. I really like it. The art is beautiful. I like the story. I like seeing Luke as a Jedi. So it's really cool. Anyway, let us know what you think if you've read this comic. If you haven't, head over to Star Wars Comics Story.
Yes.
And check him out. Subscribe to him, and he's got shit tons of Star Wars comics. It's all Star Wars comics.
He has everything since the Disney acquisition. Yeah. At least,
and some of the older stuff too. And it's cool. And he only uses music that exists in the Star Wars universe somehow. Mm-hmm. And none of the music is from the films. It's all from like Force Unleashed and Old Republic, like this like really cool music.
Which is probably also how he avoids Disney, because he just uses like older stuff. Yeah,
maybe YouTube's algorithm kind of will find it anyway. But the cool thing though is that he knows what music to use when, and it helps the story, which I think is really cool. Yeah. It's pretty much just me as a kid reading my Jedi Apprentice books with my Star Wars soundtrack on my brand new CD player and shit. So anyway, let us know what you think. Leave us a comment, like the video, subscribe. So this video is kind of long, and if you want to see the whole version of it, if you're watching this on YouTube, this is likely a cut version. If you want to listen to the whole thing, go and check out our podcast on SoundCloud, Google Play, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. We quip more.
Yes.
Yeah, we talk about stuff.
We just bullshit for another 10 minutes or so.
Yeah. So yeah, go check us out there. Thank you so much for being here. We love you guys, and we will see you on the next video.